Are the Hurricanes back? Now you're wondering, Nick, why are you saying the Hurricanes are back? They've only won, back-to-back games for only the second time this season. But it's the fact they've gone to beat the Brumbies in Canberra, the best team in Australia at the moment, and the team that are currently sitting third in the Super Rugby, away from home last weekend. And they've gone on to beat the top of the table Chiefs at home, only the third team to have beaten the Chiefs this season. And you can say, yes, the Chiefs have lost all 3 games away from home. Now, their home record has been pretty decent, but it's the fact that Hurricanes have been able to top 2 of the big Super Rugby teams this season. Now, not only just beating the Chiefs, remember, have only lost by a few points in these couple defeats they've had this season. It's the fact the Hurricanes absolutely demolished the Chiefs, particularly when that first 40 wasn't looking that great. And of course, I'll get to it later. But yes, the Hurricanes have beaten the Chiefs in Wellington on Saturday night 35-17, despite that they remain 5th on the Super Rugby table, and there are a further 8 points back from the 3rd place Brumbies, while the Chiefs, of course, stay top of the table, being that the Crusaders had a bye this last weekend of Super Rugby action. But of course, the Crusaders, behind them in 2nd place, only behind them on points difference, had that game in hand. And of course, these two teams that we'll get to later as well meet this weekend in Christchurch. It could mean they could lose their top spot by the end of this week's upcoming Super Rugby round. I'm Nick from Nickn'detail, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Hurricanes Chiefs game, which took place in Wellington last Saturday evening. So let's get into it. That's right, the Hurricanes have become the only 3rd team to beat the Chiefs this season, beating them in comfortable fashion. They've beaten them 35-17 in Wellington on Saturday evening, but remain in that top 6, which of course is pretty tight at the moment between 5th and 8th. But of course are a further 8 points back from the 3rd place Brumbies, while the Chiefs remain top of the table. But with the Crusaders coming up and of course have that game over them, it could mean they could have 1st place lost by the end of this upcoming round of rugby. So let's get to my thoughts on this game. This was actually a really tight game. The first 20 minutes, only that 3-point lead for the Hurricanes, but the Chiefs were able to come through and score, and that was mainly because the Hurricanes down the middle were terrible at their defense, and the Chiefs really put on the pressure through the rucks and the mauls, and very much deserved to be 17-9 up at the break. In fact, we saw 2 different styles from these teams. We saw the Hurricanes quite happy just to take the 3-point option in front of the post, just to kind of stay within that touching distance of the Chiefs. While we saw the Chiefs very much keen to put on the pressure on the Hurricanes, and very much, like I said, were the deserving side to come out on top, and in fact absolutely probably dominated that first half. And you thought maybe going into halftime, are we going to see a Chiefs demolition of the Hurricanes, as we saw them do in that semi-final in last year's Super Rugby competition, also in Wellington, where of course the Chiefs picked up that win there in pretty comfortable fashion as well. But it's whatever was said at halftime from head coach of the Hurricanes, Clark Laidlaw, it seemed to kind of flip a switch. The Hurricanes just looked like a whole different team. Their confidence was up. Their ball playing was just a lot better, because in that first half, they were just terrible to watch, and they came through and absolutely wiped the floor with the Chiefs. In fact, the Chiefs didn't even score any points in the second half, which of course, in the Chiefs and how they've been this season, is pretty impressive for the Hurricanes to keep the Chiefs scoreless in an entire 40-minute period. And as I said, they just look like a complete different side. The roles were almost reversed. The Hurricanes were very much the deserving winners in that second half, and that brilliant performance, and the Chiefs just looked flat. Their wing defense was terrible. The Hurricanes were able just to come through on the wing and score a ton of tries, and it honestly cost the Chiefs what should have been very much a win for them, particularly in that first half where they looked very comfortable. But for the Hurricanes, that just shows, maybe are we seeing a change in this team that haven't been the best this season so far. And of course, after this weekend's rugby, there's only like 3 games left in the regular season before the playoffs. So the season comes at you thick and fast. The games go really fast, and yeah, are we seeing that potential now for the Hurricanes, where they're able to really compete with these top teams, and they haven't really been able to do this season? But yes, for the Hurricanes, a really good performance in that second half after a disappointing first half, while for the Chiefs, a very good first half turned into a very disappointing second half. And this is a team that are leading the competition at the moment and have been the best side in the competition this season, arguably alongside with the Crusaders. So very disappointing for the Chiefs to go down in that matter. And of course, with that big top of the table matchup coming this round, I guess it's not really the way you want to kind of go into that, particularly when, once again, you're on the road where all your 3 losses have been away from home, but also you go into a Crusader side that have been very impressive this season. So who was my star player for this game? Well, my star player was substitute back Bailyn Sullivan. Now, this guy actually got on reasonably early in the game. In fact, even in the first 10 minutes, he was on the park. Winger Kinney Naholo suffered what looked like a pretty serious knee injury. While there's been no confirmation on what that injury is yet, it did look pretty serious by the way he was, I guess, carried off the field on Saturday evening. So, had to come on in the wing, Bailyn Sullivan. Now, remember, this guy's actually a centre / second five. This guy doesn't play on the wing, but the Hurricanes had no wing option on the bench. Bailyn Sullivan was that only man that could do so, and all the other backs of the Hurricanes can't play on the wing either, so he was kind of thrown in the deep end in the first 10 minutes, but man, did he step up. 4 tries, 4 from him, and I guess from a substitute, you don't really expect them to go and score 4 goddamn tries in a big matchup, especially against a team like the Chiefs, but fair play to him. He changed the whole aspect of that game, got so much ball, and man, did he take those opportunities to have a go at the try line. Great performance from the Waikato centre. On the wing, you question maybe whether the Hurricanes are actually going to play him on the wing now because of that performance, but regardless, great performance from Bailyn Sullivan. I guess his appearance, his actual, performance on the pitch really changed this aspect of the game where it was going, and like I said, a really good performance from Bailyn Sullivan. And he is my star player for the game. 4 tries off the bench, something that very much isn't heard of, particularly in modern day rugby, but a great performance nonetheless from Bailyn Sullivan, and he is my star player for this game. So what's next for these teams? Well, the Hurricanes actually have their bye this week, but then they return into action next Friday evening, where they host the Highlanders in Wellington for yet another New Zealand derby. Now, these two teams actually met a few months ago in Dunedin, where the Hurricanes only scrapped a 2-point win over the Highlanders, but the Highlanders haven't been in the best of form as of late. They sit near the bottom of the table and have only won one of their last 7 games. They have not been in good form, the Highlanders, so you expect the Hurricanes to be the favourites to go and win this game. But then with the Highlanders, they're quite a young team. In fact, they've got the youngest squad in Super Rugby, as I've mentioned in a few videos already. So don't underestimate what Jamie Joseph can do, because Jamie Joseph, as we know, is a superb coach, and with a young team, give them a few years, and as I said earlier as well, they can be a very decent team in this competition. But the Hurricanes, as I said, regardless, will be the favourites. But yes, for the Chiefs, they, as I said, I've mentioned a few times already in this video, they will take on the Crusaders down in Christchurch on Saturday evening. What promises to be a great game, a top-of-the-table clash. And for the Crusaders, if they win this one, they go top of the table. Of course, having that game in hand over the Chiefs, and the fact that the Chiefs lost to the Hurricanes, of course, on Saturday evening, the Crusaders have a perfect opportunity to go top of the table. So that promises to be a great one, and with the way the Chiefs played, you probably expect the Crusaders to be the favourite, particularly when they're at home as well. But yes, it should be interesting to see how the Chiefs respond after that Hurricanes disappointment in another big New Zealand derby against the Crusaders in Christchurch. So that's going to be it for me. What was actually a tight game in that first half really turned into an absolute one-sided affair in that second half. It was almost a story of two tales, really, where we saw, like I said, the Chiefs very much the deserving leaders into half-time, but the Hurricanes just turning the game on its head in that second half of a superb performance and got a really well-deserved win. And for the Chiefs, as I said, with the Crusaders coming up, that's not what you needed to receive, not the confidence boost you really needed going into another big derby, particularly away from home as well. So what the question is there is, can the Chiefs respond with a win down in Christchurch? And we'll find out on Saturday evening. That's going to be it from me. Until next time, I'll see you later.